Hi, welcome to our 7th video on C# fundamental tutorial. In order for you to get a clear picture of what we've been doing so far, before jumping into the 7th video, I would advise you to go and watch tutorials 1 to 6 within that timeline so you can join the 7. Without doing that, you might be having problems to understand what we've gone through so far. So, anyway, my name is Dennis, which you know, and you see it on the display there. And you can reach me with the email address du@denjuice.co.uk at any given time. You can even Google me, and you can see me on LinkedIn, in Think, or in freelancermap.com. Okay, let's breeze into it. Okay, what we've done so far, understanding C# basics, we've talked about variables, we've talked about data types, we've talked about subroutines, which happens to be methods. We're going to be meeting methods again this time around, but in a different form, okay? And we've talked about conditional statement, we've talked about iteration, which has to do with do, for, each, and while loops, and we've talked about collections. So what we're about doing now, we should be talking about classes, and you will see classes in action, everything that has to do with classes in generally. Okay, now let's go see what develops in C# classes. Understanding C# class. What is a class? A class is nothing but a group of related methods and variables. Okay, in order for you to use a class with its related methods and variables, you have to create an instance of it. Okay, now I'm going to break that down. The list you see on the screen right now, the black one with the black background, is a couple of things that exist in the class that you will be using from time to time in the class. For example, the constructor is involved in the class, the structure is involved, property, methods you've seen before. Method is nothing but the subroutine that we've been doing all this while, and then visibility, state of individual functions or property in the class. We'll talk about that as well. You see that in action. We'll talk about inheritance. We'll talk about abstract class, sealed class, override keywords, interfaces, static members, and of course constant. All right. Before we go further into classes, I will want to talk about debugging. Debugging, after writing so many lines of code, it will get to a level of complexity where you can't necessarily figure out what's going on just by writing, just by running the application. Okay, you might fall into some traps, problems, and the product doesn't run properly, giving errors and etc. So, but you need to use the art debugging to go through the process and take information from the application generally. So there are two ways of doing this. We have the print debugging, which stores information in the log file. It's an old-fashioned way. It's been there for ages. And then we have the tool debugging, which you can do it at live time. So you see it live in the code, and you go lines for lines and lines for lines and lines for lines, and until you run through the applications, and then you see your informations being splitted in your tool as well. So I will first of all do a couple of codes on debugging. And then we can now go to classes. But first of all, let's start with the print debugging, and that will now bring us to another point of writing code. So let's go write some codes. So our first issue here is which is print debug everything into a log file, and I'm going to push this away. That's what we're going to do first. I will use the past projects to solve that. So what we're about to do is we're about to write what they call trace. Okay, trace is found in .NET framework generally on the namespace system.diagnostics. I'll show you that in action and how to handle that, how we can write into log file. So what happens here is that we're going to, in every project, we have what they call the bin folder. So I'm going to go straight to the folder of the main project. This is the main project itself. As you can see, I'll close that again. I right click and I say open folder in File Explorer. It opens it, sorry. And then I have what they call the bin folder. Double click on the bin folder and you see what they call the debug folder. You open the debug folder here. Within here, there's going to be a log file of a notepad that all the information's being taken will be written through the trace inside that log file. So, and let's see that in action. But first of all, before we can do that, we need to do there's some certain rules you have to follow, certain things you have to do before you can have that. So, let's me put that down a little bit. And before I've actually written some code already for that. In our project, in every project, you have what they call the app config. This is it here, app config, application configuration. And then you have this config and XML type at the top. You have a tag called the start and the close tag and the type of framework that it needs. Okay. Now, right there, I've written the code before for that. If you want to do that, you can as well go, look at my codes and write the way I did it. So, but to speed things up, I've written that. So what it does, it has a system.diagnostics, open tag and close tag at the end. And then we have what they call the trace. Auto flush is set to true. Index size is set to 4. It's equally closed at the end with a close tag. And then we have the listeners. And the listeners I have added a name log. I gave the log a name. And the type is nothing but system.diagnostics text writer trace listener. And then initialize data. This is the log that you're going to be seeing later. The name, I've given name already, which I will be finding it in my folder. Later, somewhere here, you will see a folder called, you will see a file called C#fundamental.log will be in my bin debug folder. Okay. Now, that is system.diagnostics, which I've created. This is so important. You have to add this in your what? In your app config, in order for you to use that. Okay, now I'll go back here. What I want to do now is I am going to add a class that handles the trace information, that handles the that's going to be handling the log files. What do? I just go in again. I have a class name for that. I'm going to include a class. I'm going to call that class, I'll call it C#trace, okay? And C#trace because I wanted to be able to trace the timeline when my application start, what he has been doing, where it was, and etc. So I say add. Okay, now I have a class. I'm going to say public, set that to public. Okay. Now that I've created the class, what I usually do is, why do I create this class? I tend to put everything in one part, so I don't spread them everywhere. So I put everything in one class, so I can use them again. So and what I usually do here now is I go in here, I create, I comment, I put a comment and said, okay, what I want to be able to add as a trace, I want to be able to add an information as a trace. I want to be able to warn the user when something goes wrong. So I say warning, and then of course I do some errors as well. So I do that just for me to know, okay, I need those three parts. Okay, so to keep things simple again, I've written some lines of code that handle that. So I'll bring that in. Which is no other than this. I'll make that simple. Say that. So that is our method. It's called information. And what do we want to take? We want to be able to know the base of the problem, where it got this problem, where the problem occurred. That means the class, or it could be a class, that just the base where the problem came from. And then the root of the problem, it could be handled in the method, it could be in between the method, or it could be in a struct, or it could be in a constructor, an etc. So, and then the message itself that I want to show, I want to write into my trace or into my log file. So when that is done, what I do, now that I've done that, I need to just say, what I do here, I just say trace. Okay, and trace is in system.diagnostics. I'm going to get that namespace, and I say dot write line, and then I say I take in the information that I want and put them here. So, but to see that in action very fast, let me go here and write trace the write line, say application started. Okay, put that right. So the application started, and what I usually do, I put something like $, and I want to know when it starts. Application started at what time? I use the static date time function, the date and now, and then when I run the application, it's going to write here, it's going to create a C# fundamental.log file and write that piece of line codes that I've made there with the time, date and time. So let's go run this actually and see that in action. Okay. Okay, it runs, and let's go see that. Then I bring the file back, the folder. Here we are. We have C# fundamental log.log. I'm going to open it with a notepad. There you go. What I wrote in there was quite simple. I'll bring that a little bit down. What did I do? I said application started at 13/7/2018, 22/11/04. Quite simple. So I have that now, meaning that I should be able to know when and what my project is doing, how it's doing that. Okay. All right. So that is quite simple. And let's take this out for now. I'm going to comment that out and then go back to the trace class. Now this, what I did was quite simple. I just place it here directly. So, but now I want to organize, I want to get them organized. So I can use one class to handle those three informations, not having repeated stuff everywhere. So I just comment that one out and go to the trace class. That's what I have here. Now to keep things simple, here I've written some codes for that. I'll show you. I'll copy and paste. Now I have here, what I do here now is I wrote, I placed a blank at the top and then write information, and it adds what time, because I'm in the information part, and I tend to write the base class and its roots, which I wrote here, and I segment the messages from the other informations that comes from here, like the other informations that are not really this can be long. So this one can really be long when the information tends to be very lengthy in terms of when you're handling errors or information areas and etc. So, and I placed them in that kind of line so that they should be segmented from the others. And I placed a blank below again. I'm going to take this blank away. It's not really necessary. So now I'll just save that. To speed things up again, I have another one for warning, which I'll do. I just copy. Same thing. That's warning. I'll copy the code again as well. There you go. So I'll do the same thing for error. So I'll copy same code again and place it for error. So if you see, I have warning here and here I have warning, and so all informations are always stored. I can handle them automatically from this class directly. So now to keep things simple, I'm going to apply this again. Let me say variable trace class. Sorry, it's new trace class itself. So let's assume I've defined this already, and I'll just go here and say trace class dot information. I say here now that it's expecting me to put 3 parameters in there. I just do that, and you see it says information base, information root, and of course information message. I'll just go straight to the method, and you see here string type information base, string type information root, string type information message. Same applies to warning and error. So now I'll just go back. What is the base? The base is nothing other than the class program. I'm going to put it as a string in here, and then what it's still expecting with a comma, and it's expecting the information root. The root of the base is then main, which means it's in this static method called main. So I'm going to include that. So, and then I go further, and what is it expecting now? It's expecting the message that I want to give. So in this case, I'm about giving a message. I'll just copy that one at the top. That's my first message, which includes application started at what time. So, and I have that. So if I want to go to the observable list generally, in terms of when I run the project, where it was, how it was able to create this list that you see on the screen. So I would tend to go and create the same class here, in this part or anywhere here. That's it. And I say, this is repetition. I will talk more about this in the future with a static, but I want to keep things simple. We'll talk about this later. And I say dot information, and then what do we want? We want the base class. Same thing repeats itself here. So the base class in this case is there, and then where is it? It's at the method observable list. Put it there, and then what informations we want to display, we just write it out here. We are going to say that we're going to say here adding or populating, let's say populating person list. Okay, so I'll put a time on it to keep things simple. At populating person list at keep it simple. I'm going to put the $ in front of it here so I can use that curly brackets here and say I use the static datetime function again now. So I've done that. So I'll copy that again. So that means it's populating this one. I know where it is, and then I will do that one. I said okay, removing or removed removed a person from the list. That's wrong. From the list. Okay, so so now it's like I'm removing Martha Ben from the list, and I see here it writes it immediately, so I know okay, something went wrong because I took Martha Ben out. So, and then I can copy that again and write here here I just know that it's true with that, where I say write into console, writing the person list to a console. Take that up, or to the console. So, and then to keep it simple again, I'll copy that on the top, and I will say here at the bottom, so I can say done with observable lists method. Done with observable lists methods. Sorry. Okay. So, and then let's run this. And now that's how it's supposed to be. We just have to run this and see how it develops. But before we do that, let's go quickly delete the old one that was there. So I'm going to run this and see if everything we've written in there, we've added, will be written in our console. So don't forget, we started it here where we said write informations for us, and we went into the observable list to trace again in between. So I'll run this. Okay, we're done. I'll close the application. Go back to our trace log file, open it. There you go. So what we've done so far, application started, art, and then that was the base class program, and the root was made. And then we came into our method called observable list, which is the root, and it's of the class C# collection, which we did. I'll show you quick here. Say it again. So there you go. So we have the collection sharp as a C# collection. Bring that up again. There you go. And then your observable methods. And then what we did is that we populate person list at 13/07/2018 at that time. And then we went further. Same thing, observable list. We removed a person from it. And then we went forward again to write the person's list to the console at that time, and then still in observable list, we're still in there, and then finally we're done with the method itself, and we left at 22/26/11. Brilliant. Okay, that sorts the problem there. Okay. Now, this can be sometimes challenging in terms of performance when you have it almost everywhere in your huge project. Talking about enterprise resource planning application. And there are times you want to shut it down because you don't need it, because you basically want to run the information, you basically want to run the product immediately and see the chances of errors and doing things very fast without using the trace. What I tend to do in this case is, and I have in the app config, I tend to add an app settings. Okay, every applications have a settings. You can define your settings the way you want. So I tend to add an app settings and giving it a name called allow trace or anything whatsoever, and I give it a value of true or false. That means I want it to show, to attend to, or not to attend to. So to keep things simple, I wrote the code for that, which I had, and I'll just copy and paste it there. I have here. I'll just come in here and paste app settings. What I have is an app settings. You can add more app settings here. Depends on what you want to do, and there's a key and a value. Okay. So it depends on what you want to do, but in my case, I am handling trace, allow trace. You should do the trace or don't do the trace. Okay, so I'm going to leave that empty just in case. Then what I'm going to do now, I have an app settings, and then I've added a type allow trace with a key called allow trace, and the value is true. So I will just go to my program. Before I do that, actually, you basically need a namespace. You have to reference a namespace in your project, which I will go here, say add. The namespace that we need is system.configuration, which is definitely here. Yeah, you cross it, you check it, and say okay. It will be brought into your project. Without that, you cannot use the app config. So what I do again is I tend to go to the part where I want to use it, but generally in this case I want it here. So what I do to keep things simple, again, I have a code for that, which I've written. I'll just copy and I'll take that code and I'll paste it here, because generally it's just one class. So I'm going to include the namespace, which is here, so I can use it. Now I have an app settings. When the project starts, it creates an object from it. So I will now say to keep things simple again, I had a code for that. I will check in my information if the app settings is true. If I've set it to true, then it will basically go in here and write in my trace file. So I'll take that again, do that same here. If it's set to true, if you see I'm putting the curly brackets in between, so you need that, very important, so that it remains in the block. So I'll take that again and do that same here in my error areas. So but this, what you see me doing, it's been done through the help of the resharper. So but if you don't have that, you just write your if and put your information there, and then whatever, you do it that way. It goes as well. Like copy that, I'll put it here, for example. So, but if you don't have resharper, just do it. But this just for an advanced level. Just let it be that way. So same thing, okay? All right, now brilliant. Now we have that because I've set that, and I convert that to boolean, because it's string. Whatever comes out from there is a string, so I'll convert that to boolean. That takes a value between true and false. So you be careful what you write here. You should be able to write with either you write false here, or you write true here. Those are the two things you do. So you should be careful, because what translates from here is nothing other than strings. Okay, be careful about that. So what we do now is I've set it to, I was set to false. I'm going to take this log file away. This was the old log file, and I've deleted it. I'll bring it down, and I'll set this to false. Save the project. Now I've just said you should not include the trace file. So when I run the project, everywhere I intend to give information, in this case I'm doing information, it will not come in here. So let me run it. Okay, fine, brilliant, it's finished. I close it, and then I go open a folder. You see, there is nothing. Okay, so let me go back again and go back to app file and say, okay, you should please include it, and let me run it. Okay, it's done. I'll close it. Let's go check our file. Our folder again is in there. It did write into our file. Brilliant. All right. So that is just all about that. And I will be taking you down to the next part, which happens to be, let me show it to you, that will happen in the next video, which happens to be, I'll bring that forward, to debugging in Visual Studio. I'll show you that quick in the next video, so we can breeze a little bit more into classes. Okay, so see you in my next video. God bless you.